Welcome back. Time for our impact interview. When you have this guy's background in the game, you are what we call an expert in general football knowledge. He's a former Michigan and NFL quarterback, college football and NFL analyst. I could go on and on. Brian Griese, thanks for the time. We're very excited to have you with us, especially since it's Michigan week.
Todd, I'm happy to join you. I don't know about these other two guys, Jay and Scrap. Listen. You can put lipstick on a pig with some jackets or something like that, but these two guys, that's a rough bunch.
Well, it only took me a few shows to realize that, Brian, and I know these guys will get in their jabs when they can. We'll talk plenty of football coming up, but this is our impact interview. And you lost your mother when you were 12, and about 20 years ago, you founded Judy's House to provide support and counseling for children dealing with the grief that comes with losing a parent or a loved one. You've been honored by the Big Ten, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, for the commitment to philanthropy and leadership. So tell us what it means to you to make such an impact for those who need the help.
My wife and I started it 20 years ago, actually. I think I was a second-year player in the NFL. And, I had struggled through my life with a lot of different scenarios, but I never really dealt with the loss of my mom, and it affected my personality. It affected the way that I interacted with people, affected the way that I played football, quite honestly. And it wasn't until I began to make meaning of that loss and to give back to other kids and families that were going through the toughest time in their life that I began to really deal with my grief. And so it really started as an extension of my grief process. And over the last 20 years, we've worked with over 12,000 kids and their parents here in the Denver metro area. But we also do a lot of work nationally, raising awareness of the issue. What are the risks that kids experience if we don't help them through some of the traumatic experiences they have early in life? I have a lot of families, kids that experience loss and they're witness to the death, suicide survivors. There's a lot of trauma, and it's not enough for us to just think that kids are going to get through it. Time doesn't heal all wounds. We have to help and build coping skills in young people to deal with these very difficult times in our life. And that's what we do, and we've really been honored to do it.
Well, Brian, I just want to tell you before I get into some football stuff, as 10 years ago when I lost my father, and there was obviously a lot of ancillary public things that went with it. My own kids went through some grieving, and a group in State College called Tides does very similar to what you do. And as a parent, you just don't know how to handle it. So I appreciate what you're doing. But shifting into football, college football specifically, we all know you're a Michigan guy. So let's get this week's game. This looks like a traditional Michigan team, physical defense, great kicking game, run the ball and play action passes that hurt you. Does this seem like a Michigan reboot, kind of a back to the future vibe for you?
From my standpoint, it started at the beginning of the year. Harbaugh brought in a lot of new faces on the coaching staff, and all of them young. I mean, I don't think there's an assistant above age 40 on the staff outside of Jim. And so he went really young, and yes, they've gotten back to some of the core of running the football and playing defense. The coordinator they had there before, Don Brown, was really aggressive, a lot of man-to-man and dictating to offenses. I don't see that but I see a fundamental defense now. But offensively, they are using some of the new age run game. And I think that's helped them with two really good backs in Corum and Haskins, and a quarterback that's, just kind of like when I was playing, just kind of manage the offense, make some third down plays and red zone plays when you need them the most. And they've taken the risk out of the team on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And to me, that's worked for them outside of the Michigan State game where they just didn't make enough plays to win. But it is kind of a back to the roots kind of approach.
Hey, as you look at the two quarterbacks, Brian, Michigan is playing this Saturday. McNamara is obviously the starter, with McCarthy playing as well. Penn State has had problems keeping backup quarterbacks on their roster with some obvious consequences this year. With the transfer portal in college football, do you envision more and more teams going towards playing two quarterbacks to try and keep depth on their roster?
Yeah, it's a good point, Scrap. It's completely different than it has been. When I was playing, certainly I was number 6 on the depth chart, and When I came in, there was a guy named Tom Brady who was number 7 on the depth chart behind me, and we never thought about transferring. We thought about how can we get to be number 5, then number 4, then number 3, and you just had to persevere. And I think that there's a lot being lost right now in college football with the transfer portal. To be quite honest with you, I understand it, but I don't necessarily like every aspect of it. So to answer your question, yeah, I do think you're going to see more 2 quarterback systems just to keep these guys from transferring. You got to remember you're one play away, and certainly with Michigan, those 2 guys bring a little bit different of an approach, and so I think that they can justify it and they can sell it to both guys and to the whole offense. But I don't know, like you as a defensive coordinator, it's not going to keep you up at night. It's not going to force you to put in a whole nother defense for certain situations. So it's definitely not presenting that kind of an advantage. I really do think it is to keep guys in school, and that's why they're doing it.
We have Nittany Game Week history. You're the first guest we've had who played against Penn State. So you've stood in the opposing team's tunnel at Penn State as the opposing starting quarterback. You won once, lost once. When you took the field and looked across at the Nittany Lions, what's that feeling like playing in a place like Beaver Stadium?
Well, it was a lot more fun winning than losing, I can tell you that. I remember, I'm not sure if the game we played there in '97 was a whiteout game. I don't even know if they did that back then. But I remember coming out into Beaver Stadium and we played in the Big House. That's an iconic stadium. But coming out into Beaver Stadium, boy, it took your breath away. It really did. It looked huge. And it was a huge game. I mean, that '97 game was number 2 against number 4. I think they had some kind of term for like Judgment Day or something like that. So it was a huge game. It was such a great environment. And, between Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, those 3 stadiums, those 3 fan bases, it always felt big. And the games were big, and the environment. And you had, Keith Jackson doing the game. I just have great memories of it.
Brian's going to hang with us for a few minutes as we take a quick break. Still plenty to talk about with the former Big Ten and NFL quarterback. We will continue our interview. So if you want to see the entire conversation, make sure you go to NittanyGameWeek.com to check it out along with other web exclusive content.
So, Brian, in an era where every rookie quarterback is supposed to come in and star immediately, you benefited. How much did it impact your career to get to Denver and learn alongside a consummate pro like John Elway before really kind of embarking in your own right as the starter?
Yeah, it was invaluable, Jay. I mean, not only did I come in '98, we didn't know it was going to be John's last year, and they had just won the Super Bowl the year before, '97. They had it rolling. In my rookie year, the Broncos, we won 13 games in a row. We were 13-0, and so I had just come from Michigan. We had won the national championship and gone undefeated. And then I come to the NFL and we're 13-0. I'm like, shoot, I haven't lost a game in a long time.
At that point, did your dad try and get you to sabotage the Broncos? Was he a little worried?
I tell you, we went up to New York. We played the Giants in the Meadowlands, and they threw a Hail Mary to Amani Toomer, my old teammate at Michigan, and that's how we lost our first game of the year. So it was coming, and I got to say, there was a part of me that was kind of like, oh well, we're 13-1, that's okay, but at least my dad's. But it was a great year for me to sit and watch John and how he. Everything. I watched everything. I was a sponge, how he prepared, watched film, how they went through the game plans, snap count, cadence. I mean, it was great. So, I think that there's a piece of that that is certainly valuable to rookies that are going through it now. But I just did a game last Monday of Justin Fields, and there's also something to be said for guys going out there and playing. And Justin Fields is getting better on a weekly basis because he's playing. He's learning while he's playing, and they're not winning. So you start to wonder, is the coach going to survive as he learns? But he's certainly getting better. So I can see the value in both.
In 1997, you were part of a great Michigan team loaded with talent. given the depth of your receiving corps, did you really need Charles Woodson to play on both sides of the ball, or were you just being greedy? We always wondered. We want to know what really happened there.
You know,
Did
if you want to do
to get him,
Scrap, if you want to do something that's never been done before, you have to do it differently. Okay? So in order for a defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy, he had to play a little bit of offense. And that's why he was on the offensive side. That's why he returned punts. He returns the punt for a touchdown against Ohio State in the biggest game of the year, and he sealed the Heisman Trophy. But yeah, Charles, he didn't practice on offense. I grabbed him after practice. Hey, let's come run a few routes, and I'll be damned if he didn't come over there and run routes and run them better than all of our receivers. So those kinds of guys, you got to have them on the field as much as you can.
I'm sure Peyton Manning wishes he only stuck to the defensive side of the ball. That's for darn sure. Hey, look, you're announcing on Monday Night Football, and one of the keys for anybody that's doing announcing is to know your audience, right? And that's a really unique audience because obviously you've got the hardcore football fans, but you also have a lot of people tuning in on Monday nights that aren't necessarily watching all of what's going on Sunday. How do you balance that, Brian, when you're trying to increase the knowledge for people that are coming along as more of a casual fan, but obviously don't want to insult the hardcore people as well that are watching a game?
Yeah, it really is a balance. You use that word, it's a balance. I wouldn't be doing the job if the only people I was talking to were the novices or the people that were just watching for entertainment. I mean, I love the X's and O's, and I love the strategy, and I love all of that. And that's a big reason why I do this job. Is in real time, in a matter of 10, 15 seconds to watch a play, diagnose what's happening, what was the key to that play, where was the breakdown or where was the great play, where was the thing that the fan at home didn't see why the play was successful or not. Was it a block or a leverage point or a great decision? Everybody's following the ball. You see that. So I try to push myself to not watch that and to show people why trends are happening and success or failure is happening in short sound bites. So that's what I find really exciting. But we also are doing entertainment. And, my partner, Steve Levy, is great, unbelievable at keeping it light. He's the fan at home. He's our checks and balances. Louis Riddick and I are up there, and we really enjoy the strategy of the game. And I always tell Steve, hey, if I say something that you don't understand or that goes over your head, just say, hey, wait a minute, what does that mean? Because you are my checks and balances. And he also brings a great levity and light approach to the game where we have fun. People can hear you when you smile. And it's important. It's not a coaching clinic. It's entertainment. It's both. We're not going to be the Peyton and Eli show either. That's the other end of the aspect. So people, when they see us, they want to watch the game and they want to know why the game is being won or lost. And so I really enjoy that. I use my wife as a litmus test when I get home. Did you, were there times where you didn't understand what I was talking about? Perfect example, this last game, the Pittsburgh and Chicago game, we were talking about perimeter run game. And so I had our folks put up a graphic that just showed the gaps in the run game, like the A, B, C, D, and E gaps from the center all the way out to the sideline. People don't understand that. But a lot of times we'll talk about gaps and, gap responsibility and things like that. So we go back to the basics and we'll teach. And then as the plays and the game unfold, we'll refer back to those things. So hopefully when people get done watching the game, they know why it was won or lost, and maybe they learned something that they didn't know before, and it was entertaining.
Most wives are skilled at brutal honesty, Brian. I find mine does the same thing.
Yeah, I get a lot of that, yeah.
Hey, so, Brian, you were fortunate to play for really one of the great gentleman coaches in college football, Lloyd Carr. And part of the beauty of football have been the lessons that you learn about life in the game. So can you talk about the impact Lloyd Carr had on your life and perhaps a lesson that you still carry from him?
Yeah, I guess the relationship with Lloyd is different than any other coach that I've ever had. And I think that was born out of shared struggle people remember Lloyd and they remember the national championship, but remember the way that Lloyd came into that year. Lloyd was on a hot seat, and we had lost 4 games in each of the seasons with him as a head coach when he took over for Gary Moeller. And the talk was, hey, maybe he's not the right guy for Michigan. And we had lost to Ohio State. We had lost to Michigan State, and it wasn't good enough. And so coming into that year, Lloyd's butt was on the line. And our senior class was the first senior class in a long time that potentially wasn't going to win the Big Ten championship and go to the Rose Bowl. So we felt the heat too. And so we came together, our senior class and Lloyd, and we had a lot of conversations as to how we needed to do things different, and how, we needed to band together. And I felt like Lloyd struck the perfect tone and the perfect chord that season. And we had this metaphor of climbing the mountain, Mount Everest. And he brought that to us, and still to this day, it was one of the best motivational tactics that I've seen work with a team. And he used it not just in preseason, he used it the entire year. As we kind of won games and we got higher on the mountain, that the air got thinner and there was more risk and less room for error. And that's certainly how it was. That's what we talked about when we came to State College to play you guys, and then played Wisconsin the week later, and then Ohio State at the end of the year. But he was rock solid, and it was never about him. It was always about the team in Michigan, and he learned that from Bo. There's no question. And he held the torch, and he held it at a time when there was no safety net for him. And if that season didn't go well, that was it. And I just got a lot of respect for people that are able to do that under immense pressure with 18, 19-year-old kids.
Hey, on Monday Night Football, you're surrounded by a couple of Penn Staters and Lisa Salters on the field and Ben Bohm in the booth.
We overcome.
Any wagers on the game this week with your coworkers? We need to know.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be out in San Francisco. We've got the Niners and the Rams, and Lisa's my wine buddy. She likes a good bottle of red wine. So I'll definitely do something with her. And with Boma, so I got this hat from Ben Boma. He's my hockey guy. So I think I'll do something with Ben. If Michigan wins, I've never been to Montreal to see a Canadiens game, so I'd love to do that. I'd also love to spot. I'd like to do Ben's job. I'd like to spot an NHL game for Steve Levy and just get Ben out of the booth, and just let me do that. So I might put that on the line.
As long as you don't have to pronounce some of the names. You can spot the players, but you don't necessarily have to pronounce some of those hockey names, Brian.
Oh, well, listen, I got my board right here in case you want to know. Let me give you this one. This is the Rams outside linebacker. His name is Agbonia Okoronkwo.
Yeah, you might be right. The NFL is getting into the hockey type pronunciation. A lot of vowels.
They're getting
like to buy a vowel.
I can pronounce the Russian
Italian
names
vowel.
easier than those.
Well, look, we were going to ask you about the Kraken hat. You covered that one. And we were going to ask you some stuff for some Penn State students. And you really went into detail with your Monday Night Football answer. So thanks for that. We appreciate it. Kind of running out of time. We kept you long enough. But anything you wanted to add, guys? Jay, Tom, Brian, anything?
Great to see you again, Brian. It really is.
Brian,
So
good.
the one thing I do miss about not doing college football is being on campus. I miss going to Penn State. I miss going to Michigan. I do miss the pageantry and the bands and the students and the fans and all that. So you guys have fun at the game this weekend. I'll miss you.